Two enemy soldiers in Sabbath School. Many years ago, there was war between Japan and China. The victorious Japanese army was marching all over the country, overcoming town after town and city after city. As they drew near the city of Xinjiang, just north of the Yellow River, panic seized the people and as many as could began to flee. Thousands bought tickets and rode out on the train. Other thousands rode out on rickshaws, on wheelbarrows, and on donkeys. But there were thousands upon thousands who couldn't go and who just had to stay right there no matter what might happen. Among those who stayed were most of our Sabbath School members, and every Sabbath they stood in the doorways of their little homes, watching the enemy planes flying overhead and listening to the bombs bursting here and there. "We are afraid to go to Sabbath School today," said the fathers and mothers. "If we go, maybe a bomb will fall on us and kill us." But the children said, "If we stay home, maybe a bomb will fall on us and kill us too. And if we are going to be killed anyway, we would rather be killed at Sabbath School than at home." So every Sabbath they went to Sabbath School in their little chapel. One Friday night it seemed as if the enemy sent every airplane it had against the city. It seemed as if the enemy dropped every bomb it had, and in the morning the city was in ruins. "We can't go to Sabbath School today," said the fathers and mothers. "The chapel has surely been destroyed." "But let us go and see," begged the children. "We feel safer in Sabbath School than we do at home." So off they went to Sabbath School. As they neared the center of the city, their hearts trembled, for they could hear the tramp, tramp, tramp of marching feet, and they knew the city had fallen during the night, and that now the enemy soldiers were marching into the city. Quickly they went to their chapel, and to their great joy they found it had not been destroyed, so quietly they gathered inside. "Don't let us sing this morning," whispered the superintendent. "The city is full of enemy soldiers." The pale-faced Sabbath School members, with their eyes opened wide with fear, silently nodded their assent. "If we make a noise, the soldiers may come in and beat us and steal everything we have, and maybe kill us," continued the superintendent, still whispering. "Oh ho!" groaned the people, covering their faces with their hands at the dreadful thought. "But if we are quiet, maybe the soldiers will think the chapel is empty and will pass us by." "That's right, that's right," the people whispered back in reply. "I see everybody's here, so lock the doors," he whispered, addressing two elderly gentlemen sitting in the back. "Then put the table and some benches against the door." The two old men quietly did what they were asked to do, and then sat on the benches that barricaded the door to make it that much more secure. They had just knelt for a whispered prayer when there was a thunderous banging on the door. "Shh!" warned the superintendent. "Don't say a word, and don't move." But the banging got louder and louder. They all held their breath and kept so quiet they could hear their hearts beat. But the banging kept on louder and louder till it seemed that the door would be broken open if they didn't do something. So the superintendent motioned to the two old gentlemen who sat near the door and whispered, "Open the door the tiniest little crack. It may be someone who wants to come to Sabbath School." So the two old gentlemen pushed back the benches a little bit and opened the door a tiny crack, and there stood two enemy soldiers. As soon as the soldiers saw the door open, they started talking in Japanese, and as they talked they pointed to themselves and through the crack in the door. Now the Chinese gentlemen couldn't understand what they were saying, but they could easily understand the signs they were making. So they began talking in Chinese and making signs too. "Please don't come in here," they said. "We are not soldiers. We have no guns. Look, we are just Seventh-day Adventists having Sabbath School." And they pointed to the sign that said Seventh-day Adventist Chapel. "Please don't." But the two soldiers started talking again like a blue streak. And as they talked, they pointed to themselves, then to the sign SDA Chapel, then to the old man, then to the sign, then to the old man, then to themselves, then up to the sign and through the crack in the door. The two old men couldn't understand their words, but they could tell easily by the signs that the boys were saying, "We are SDAs the same as you, and we want to come to Sabbath School." But the old men were afraid. "How can we tell you are SDAs?" they asked. "Maybe you are just saying that to get inside, and then you'll beat us. Please don't." The boys seemed to get the idea, and what do you think they did? They took their New Testaments from their inside pockets and took out their lesson quarterlies and passed their lesson quarterlies through the crack in the door for their passports. The old Chinese man looked at those lesson quarterlies. There was no doubt about it. They were lesson quarterlies all right. A big grin spread over their faces. All right, they said, you can come to Sabbath school. So they opened the door and in came the two soldiers. They made signs for some paper and a pencil and began to write. Now, strange as it may seem, the Chinese can read the Japanese writing, and the Japanese can read the Chinese writing. And the boys wrote, we have been in the army for 2 years. We have had to have Sabbath school all by ourselves. But this morning, when we saw the sign SDA Chapel, we got so homesick to come to Sabbath school. So we bang, bang, bang. There was another thunderous banging on the door. Let us open the door, said the Seventh-day Adventist Japanese soldiers. They did, and outside there was a group of drunken enemy soldiers bent on every wickedness they could think of. But our two Japanese soldiers said, it's all right, fellows. We are looking after this bunch. You go somewhere else. And when the drunken soldiers saw their own soldiers and heard their own language, they said, okay, buddies, okay, and away they went. They went on with their Sabbath school, reading a little bit, writing a little bit, praying a little bit. Soon there was some more banging on the door, but again our Japanese soldier boys opened the door, and without any trouble the drunken soldiers went away. When at last Sabbath school was over, the Chinese brethren wrote on a piece of paper, we are free to go home now. There is no one to open the door for us there. We would like to stay here and have Sabbath school all day. Would you like to stay with us too? And our Japanese soldiers wrote a big yes. And that is how it happened that none of our Chinese Sabbath school members were beaten or mistreated that day. And for 3 more Sabbath days, as long as the army of occupation was in Xinjiang, our two Japanese Seventh-day Adventist soldier boys came and had Sabbath school with them all day long. And our Sabbath school members in Xinjiang will never, never forget the day when two enemy soldiers came to Sabbath school.